What is your reaction to the lawsuit that was filed against Bob McCullough by one of the grand jurors?
Well, can you say more about the lawsuit that was filed?
Not familiar with that.
No. No.
He was saying, the story came out today that the grand juror is saying that he mischaracterized the case. Yep.
Well, that's what we said. He mischaracterized the case. We are happy that the grand jury appears to be catching up, right?
Right.
And I don't know what is meant by he mischaracterized the case, when, or anything like that. I think what really I want to say, and what the point that we're trying to make, we hope that everybody comes to the correct conclusions about what happened here. Again, this is a very transparent process that we're involved in. And we do believe that the announcement that this grand jury was going to occur set the stage for people to discover witness number 40. Set the stage for a grand juror, in retrospect, to determine that he did the wrong thing. And if nothing else, it seems to me, that alone says something about the significance of this process here. Given an opportunity to do what they want to do without any kind of confrontation by the people with truth, then the lie will prevail forever. The reason we are having this discussion now is because black people step forward and say we will take our future in our own hands. We will listen to this testimony. We will bring witnesses forward. And then we will come to a conclusion that is just and transparent. That's why we can hear about witness 40, and we can hear other things about grand jurors having discovered that Mr. McCullough misstated the case.
And if I may also add, out of this grand jury, it's ironic that you would see, in terms of so-called witnesses for Darren Wilson, being only juror 40, whereas all the other witnesses were from the community, yet he is found not guilty or no probable cause for an indictment. That speaks to the mockery of the grand jury in the first place. And also that speaks to the deep racial divide, not only here in St. Louis, but throughout the country. When you have a jury that was composed of 12, 9 being white and 3 being black, and we don't know how they voted along those lines inside of the jury anyway. So again, that speaks to the deeper issues that is not only evident with the murder of Mike Brown, but as he just mentioned, Eric Gardner, Tamar Rice, and so on, that has occurred day after day, year after year in our communities, when you find police officers who act as if they are members of the KKK, which of course was sanctioned lynchings, but we say today it's legal lynching that occurs with the killing of black people, and that must stop. And this is the great process by which we feel will be a way to move forward into the future.
I would like to make just one other statement because I can't say how anybody else understands this process of the grand jury. I think we're so accustomed in this country to rigged processes that there may be an assumption that something was rigged about this. But I can tell you that the prosecutors waited with bated breath to coin a phrase to see what the determination of this grand jury would be. And as I understand it, of the 12, that there were 11 for the first degree murder conviction, indictment, and one that had another position on that. So it wasn't some slam dunk thing, and it wasn't some blind group of people, but it was a group of people who took their responsibilities very seriously and who had before them every inch of the way the law as it is written, as it is characterized for this county and this country. So this was a prevailing thing that occurred throughout this process. And I wanted to make that statement, and I think one of the grand jurors is here. I don't know if you want to say anything about your deliberations or anything like that. Yeah. Yeah. You were were you the lead?
I was the foreman.
Foreman, yes, go ahead. Say your name. So.
My name is Robert Dillard, and I was the foreman in juror number 1. And it was a difficult process because for all of us, none of us wanted to be part of the problem. None of us wanted to be, part of a system that we were protesting. We didn't want to go in extremely biased. We didn't want to go in making a decision just because we were black, and nor was that the message that we wanted to send to the world. So we reviewed hours of testimony. We watched videos after videos and listened to witnesses, and it was difficult. And there were many heated moments in the room. So this wasn't a situation where we all came out to immediately seek a conviction for or seek a indictment for Darren Wilson. But one thing I can say, everyone that was in the room, we looked very carefully at all of the evidence that was presented to us. And as been said before, there was a lot of focus on making sure that we were paying attention to the facts and that we weren't letting our emotional biases, come into play. So yeah, it was a difficult process.
Question. The St. Louis County Grand Jury heard testimony and deliberated over the course of 3 months or so.
Mhm.
How were you able to pack that into 2 days, including your deliberations and everything? Do you feel like you made your way through everything?
I'd like to speak to that if I may, because it's a legal question. There's an assumption that McCullough and much of the national media promotes that the responsibility of the grand jury was to hear all of this testimony. It was like to inundate the people with testimony. That's not the case. McCullough himself stated that all he needed was to show probable cause, and Doran Johnson's testimony alone was enough to show probable cause. And that's what grand juries do. So we didn't have 5,000 pages of testimony. There was no witness number 40 who spent 2 hours there. None of that occurred. We presented the evidence necessary for a reasonable, prudent group to make a determination. And I think the law does speak to a prudent person being able to make a determination that there was probable cause, that a crime had been committed. So there was not 5,000 pages of inundation. That was not the case. We didn't try to overwhelm a group of people with minutia. Minutia, right. Well, inertia. That wasn't the objective at all. So that's why McCullough could have done it in the same fashion. He could have acted legally, principally, and ethically, and he didn't. He refused to do that because he knew what the outcome was that he wanted. And it didn't, and everybody knows that a grand jury is a prosecutor's tool. Of 160,000 federal grand jurors, and we know that there's a difference in a federal grand jury and a state grand jury, of 160,000 in 2010, only 7 instances were there no indictments. Only 7. So it is a grand juror's tool. You know about the proverbial ham sandwich. Well, this was no ham sandwich that we had before us. This was an actual process that was transparent again and legal.
So, Mark, basically you're saying, bottom line, you think McCullough stacked that case?
I'm not saying I think he stacked the case. I'm saying I know he stacked the case.
Right.
And I'm saying also that if you look at the testimony, first of all, I think it's incumbent upon all of us media people to find out what a grand jury is about. Because most people don't know what a grand jury is about, and they accept what McCullough is talking about as gospel. He is being democratic. That's what he's saying, this democratic process, letting people hear everything. When in the hell has a prosecutor ever done that in a grand jury? That's not his responsibility to let them hear everything. He should have been there to present evidence that a prudent person would be able to make a determination that a crime had been committed. and he didn't do that.
Bob, I think had it.
I have a copy of the Riverfront Times, which is one of the popular magazines here that comes out. This is the December 25th to 31st, 2014 edition. They have a picture of witness number 40 here, Samuel Elroy. The first interview that McCullough gave after the Michael Brown verdict, it stated the interview that he would not seek perjury charges against witness 40 or any other witnesses who offered discredited testimony. What do you think of that?
I think that first of all, it was a discredited process.
Yes.
That, to assume that somehow that the witness, that McElroy, would have done something differently in the process that McCullough stacked. And I want to just say that what's really important for everybody who's seen this and heard about this, it wasn't that he did not know she was a liar. It wasn't that. He said it. He said he knew she was lying. He knew it. And he put that evidence before that grand jury. He knew it. He stated that himself. And I think that's enough for serious charges against McCullough, that he should be removed. He should be disbarred because that's a serious ethical breach in terms of his responsibility as a lawyer. He knew that. And that did not happen with us on the 3rd and 4th. In a short period of duration that we engaged in, there was no witness number 40. There was no participation with anybody. And when those 12 people went to deliberate, I was on pins and needles wondering what kind of determination they would come back with. And one of the reasons I was because of the questions that were being asked of the prosecutors by the grand jurors themselves. It was an open process, and I'm proud of it. It was a historic process, and I'm proud of the grand jurors, and I'm proud of this community, and I think that it's been an incredible historic moment that we will see replicated throughout this country by black people who want to be free and do not want to live in communities where we have to expect that our children will die early deaths because of police actions.
Robert, can I ask you, Robert, what, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think, yeah.
Okay, can you address the black people who say they don't see the point of this black people's grand jury?
Yeah, I suspect if you ask them about the point of the white people's grand jury, if they're honest, they would come to a similar conclusion. But I don't expect that everybody will understand, nor that everybody will unite. What was important for us was the stance of those 12 people who went and deliberated around this case. And these were school teachers, social workers, contractors, painters, writers, just a variety of community activists, one variety of folk who only had the interests of this community at heart. And who never, generally speaking, we never have an opportunity to vote on our own fate. In this instance, those people did that. And the persons who don't see the significance of it or the need for it, I cannot say too much about that. I don't have an answer for that.
On a historical perspective, during the height of the civil rights movement, with Dr. King leading many different marches, there were a number of folks out of our community that did not agree with him. So there's never complete unity in terms of different kinds of movements. We recognize the historic moment. We are the pioneers, because there are always pioneer movements to bring about a substantive change, and this is what this is all about.
I guess if I responded to them, I would say, you're going to be free whether you want it or not. I'm sorry, sir.
Okay, yeah, Robert, what did you take away from the evidence that you heard?
What did I take away from it?
Yeah, what did this tell you?
Well, it showed me, I like, as has been said before, I didn't go into this wanting to be the juror for the actual trial. That wasn't my place. My place was to decide if there was, again, probable cause. So what I took away from this is that there was probable cause, and that while I don't know all of the facts, and what we do know is that there was sufficient testimony to support that there should at least be a trial, where at that point, all of the facts should come out. And I think it's kind of interesting because I think one thing that's commonly forgotten is that the indictment is not to say whether or not this gentleman was guilty. And it's only fair to Darren Wilson as well to have his fair day in court. So what was most important to me was that everyone had a fair day in court, not only the victims in this particular case, but Darren Wilson as well. And that's what I personally was invested in saying, that everyone had a fair day in court.
So it was 11-1 to indict for first degree.
Yes.
What was the one?
It wasn't, I won't say exact, because that juror isn't here, and I don't want to talk too much about that, but what I can say is this. I will say that the one really wanted there to be some sort of representation for, I don't want to put words in his mouth, so I really don't want to go too deep into that, but I can say that it was a very contentious debate in the room, and like my brother said before, this was not a slam dunk, and I'm just happy that we all came to a conclusion, the 11 of us, that there was probable cause for an indictment.
Did he vote for or against the indictment?
He was for an indictment, yes.
On a lesser charge?
Yes.
Zach, I have a question for you. You've been out kind of on the front lines with a lot of the protests and the movement. Seems like kind of the violence and some of the protests have died down in the last week and a half or so. What impact, if any, do you see this decision having on that and the peace within the community?
This is an ongoing effort to bring justice. You may not have seen, the consistency of the demonstrations, but again, they have been there, and there's been a number of demonstrations over the holidays. This is not going away. The wound is real deep. As mentioned earlier, there have been a number of other shootings subsequently after the killing of Mike Brown. So this community is far from being united per how people try to project it. We are determined to deal with the underlying issues that impact our community, and that is police terrorism. That is the disproportionate number of white officers in our community. It is in terms of how those same white officers view our communities. Those are the deeper issues, along with the judicial system that allows the many instances of brutality. And also at our grand jury, we gave a historical background all the way back to Marilyn Banks, a young of terrorism in our community, and many instances of our people being victimized by the police. So this is far from ended. In fact, if it's not out of character right at this moment, there's going to be a major march on Clayton that Leadership for Justice Coalition will be hosting on January the 31st. So no, this has not ended, and it will continue in terms of the fight for justice.
I want to say just a couple of other things, and I want to express appreciation to all of you for being here and for your patience. But as it has been said, we see the Black People's Grand Jury as offering some kind of direction for a spontaneous movement that has seen a rapid radicalization of African people throughout this country. In fact, it is the most political motion by ordinary Black people that we've seen for the last 2 generations, subsequent to the assassinations of King and Malcolm X, the destruction of the Black Panther Party, and many other organizations that existed in this country. And we've seen this rapid radicalization, but not necessarily a kind of political clarity and direction. We think that the Black People's Grand Jury offers some direction. It says that we have to have self-determination. We have to be in charge of our own affairs. Beyond that, subsequent to the decision made by the heroic jurors, we had further discussion with the audience after the proceeding was over. And we talked about the absolute need for this movement to move toward Black community control of the police. That if there are going to be police in our community, if there are going to be people in our community sanctioned by law to be able to kill, then they should be under the leadership, they should be under the control of the community itself. We say they should live in the community, that they should have the same stakes in the community as everyone else. They should not be an invading force that comes to this community only looking for trouble that they call crime. That they should assume concern for all the contradictions, not just what they call crime, but for the joblessness, for the unemployment, for the poor health, that they should be actual servants of the people, that they should have these things removed, this war gear that they wear, the black outfits and ski masks that are used to intimidate a population, to treat our community as a colonial, colonized, subject people that have to be victimized by these colonial outsiders who function as terrorists. That the people must control the police. That is a democratic response. There's some suggestion that there is a quandary about how we can solve this problem. Should we have cameras? Should there be dialogue around race around the country? Should there be what they call police review boards, giving us an opportunity to review what the police has already done? We say no, that there should be Black community control of the police. That has to be the message. We train them, we hire them, we fire them, we determine their mission, the policies in our communities. And that is a democratic response. The people have the right to control the guns in their community. So that I've heard, I've never seen it, but I've heard that in white communities, police are helpful in taking cats out of trees and helping little old ladies across the street. We'd like to see something like that in our community as well. And we believe that Black community control of the police will allow for there to be a police organization that the people feel secure with, that we see is there to provide for the people instead of acting as some kind of terrorist entity that comes in to occupy our community at will and then go someplace else to live without any kind of consequences or responsibility to the community. I want to, we can just one, and then we'll close it down. Yes.
Okay, under the American legal system, do you feel that Darren Wilson had legal process under the colored grand jury, also up under the Black people grand jury?
Do I which? I'm sorry.
His due process.
Under the American legal system, do we feel
That he received under Bob McCullough grand jury and also up under the Black.
I think, as the young brother grand juror said, in many ways, you can say that Darren Wilson was done a disservice by Bob McCullough, because everybody I know thinks he did it. And the way to have found out for sure whether he did it was to have gone to trial. An indictment would have taken him to trial. All the evidence could have been weighed in a very public, transparent process, and he could have defended himself in a good way. But this tainted thing that McCullough did, then this, no matter the fact that he was rewarded by the white population with, understand, perhaps up to $1 million, this golden parachute retirement, they call it resignation, but it's clearly a retirement. Despite the fact that he's been rewarded for that, he's going to live for as long as he does, just like Zimmerman, George Zimmerman. Everybody knows he murdered Trayvon. He's going to have to live with that. And with the fact that the whole world knows that he's a murderer. And, but he could have had an opportunity. He could have walked into this door. He could have sat down before this black people's grand jury, and he could have said, this is what happened, and people would have had an opportunity to actually ask him questions. He was not even questioned in a serious way in the white people's grand jury. I want to thank everybody so much for coming out, and turn it back over to Sister Kenethia from St. Louis International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yes, again, thank you so much for the press coming out and members of the community coming out, and for this historical presentation of the decision of the Black People's Grand Jury. I would like to extend to anyone interested in joining us in this struggle to be able to contact the International People Democratic Uhuru Movement local branch membership at uhuruferguson@gmail.com, or you can give us a call at 314-643-6519. Thank you.